What's up, YouTube? This is Matthew here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about EMDs, earnest money deposits, especially in your wholesale real estate deals. I get a lot of questions from you all asking, so should I put an earnest money deposit down? Or should I put that in the contract? Is it required? Can I leave it out? And in today's video, I'm going to answer all of those questions. So if you have any other questions about contracts, about EMDs, please let me know down below. Like this video and be sure to subscribe. Now, earnest money deposits, I'm just going to talk about my experience with it and just dealing with sellers when they ask me, hey, are you going to put a deposit down or not? So all of my wholesale deals I've ever done, I never put an earnest money deposit down. Now, in more competitive markets, and especially during this time when if there is a super hot deal and investors are going to hop on it, you have to show that you're a serious buyer and actually put an earnest money deposit down to fully commit and lock you into that deal. And so, yes, earnest money deposits are a great thing. It's a great tool to really put trust between you and the seller and to really lock them into this deal so that if they do get an offer from someone else or from another company, they will be more hesitant of leaving you and going to someone else because you already have your deposit with the title company. And so that's the next thing. So when you put an earnest money deposit down, you have to give it to the title company or your closing attorney. You do not give it to your seller, right? And the amount can range anywhere from $100 to $5,000, depending on the situation, depending on the type of house that you're dealing with. You just want to make sure it's secure and that the amount is enough where it truly locks that seller in. So talking about my experience and in situations when, let's say, the market is not super competitive, right? And you can kind of pick and choose your deals, or even if it's semi-competitive, because honestly, real estate is always competitive, but I've never put an earnest money deposit down. And so how did I navigate that? How can you do that? So one thing is just to never talk about it, right? Earnest money deposits are not a requirement for any wholesale deals, right? And so if you don't bring it up, the seller most likely won't bring it up. And that's what happened with me in my experience with earnest money deposit. Most of the time, I never brought it up, and so the seller never brought it up. And if the seller does ask about a deposit, you can say, hey, usually we have this agreement and that locks us into the deal, and I bring this straight to the title company. And I just explain to them that process, and I let them know, usually we don't put an earnest money deposit down because we still have to go through some sort of inspections and things of that nature. And also that we're just, this agreement is what truly binds us together. And I am going to show you all on this video, I'm going to share my screen with you all and show you all contracts that I use, whether they have earnest money deposits and whether they don't have earnest money deposits. And so I'm also going to talk about and show you all contracts that you send to your end buyer, because sometimes you probably want to put a earnest money deposit requirement for your cash buyer for your assignment on contract, right? So that's a whole nother contract. And as a wholesaler, you should require that for your end buyer, because you don't want to have a assignment on contract, have a buyer in it, and then they just drop out of the deal because they don't have financing or they don't have cash or they don't like the deal anymore. You have to lock them in, right? And so a lot of times that's what I did with my cash buyers. I may have not done it with my sellers, but I do that with my cash buyers. And so let me share my screen with you all, show the different contracts that I use in order to put an earnest money deposit down or not put an earnest money deposit down. So let me go right here. So for example, this is a regular, let's go to a regular purchase and sell agreement. So right here, it doesn't show anything about an earnest money deposit, right? And so you don't have to worry about it, right? It's just a regular purchase and sales agreement with the assignment clause right here. You could put and or assigns after your name as the buyer too, but I like having a whole clause right here. And please be sure to check out my videos on contracts. Just go to my YouTube channel and just click contract. I have a ton of videos on the different contracts, and then in those videos there are usually links to other contracts that you can download. All right, and so this is an example of earnest money deposit clause that I put. So with this particular property, I was buying it and it was more of a hotel deal. And so I did put an earnest money deposit down because I was closing on the property myself. And so I put right here, I just added a clause, earnest money deposit. Buyer will pay a non-refundable deposit of $1,000. Deposit it, and you list out the title company and the address. Buy, and you say this date, right? Which is, before the closing date, essentially. And so I just put a regular earnest money deposit clause. Another wholesale contract that I used to use way back when I first started was something like this. And so as earnest money deposit, cash to seller at closing, and then total price. And so it's very similar to the first one. You just have to put it somewhere, right? And then you put a clause right here, earnest money to be deposited with a licensed title company or attorney within 48 hours of acceptance and ratification of offer. And now I want to talk about assignment on contract. So this is the contract you give to your cash buyer. So this is an example of an assignment on contract with no EMD, right? We just have the wholesaler, right, assigns to the investor. And then you have the address, and then the wholesaler and seller, and then date. And then you just have this contract is going to be assigned for $10,000, right? Investor should close on or before this date. Boom. Now let's see one with an EMD that I used before in the past. So it would be Biz Matthew, wholesaler, assigns to blank, to the buyer, the purchase contract on address between Biz Matthew, the wholesaler, and seller. So here is the earnest money deposit clause that I would put. It says, upon execution of this contract agreement, buyer hereby agrees to pay wholesaler a non-refundable earnest money in the amount of $2,000. Earnest money to be credited towards agreed upon assignment fee at closing. So this is the purchase contract to be assigned. So let's say you're making $10,000, you put that right here, and you put the $2,000. So that would be essentially applied to that contract. And so I usually do that for bigger deals. If it's a smaller deal, it's $10K or less, I don't do it. But if it's higher than that amount, I would do it, right? And so going back, talking about earnest money deposit, is it a requirement? In certain situations, like, I closed on the MLS, they wanted me to put a deposit. So that's what I did. That locked me into the deal. What else? Oh, I'm purchasing a flip, and I'm using the same purchase and sales agreement for my wholesale deals for this transaction, and I didn't put a deposit down, right? Because it's off market, there's no realtors and things of that nature. And so but when I go to sell the property, I most likely will be using a realtor, and will require the seller to put down a deposit to lock them into the deal. And so that's all the information about EMDs with wholesaling, whether you should do it, whether you should not. It just depends. I think if you really want to set yourself apart, it's probably the best case to put one down, and just let the seller know, hey, I'm going to put a deposit down to show you that I am motivated, that I am for sure, I'm confident that I want this property, and I am dedicated to bring us to closing on this property. You can say all those things and still not talk about a deposit, but that's just an extra layer, I believe, to set you apart. But especially in the beginning, you may not have enough money, and maybe that amount will be less. Maybe, let's say you have $100, $200, maybe you can give that. Or even if you don't even have that amount, some people don't have money for EMDs, and so they can't put anything down, and so they don't put anything down. And so that's something that you just have to consider, you can navigate. And like I said, all my wholesale deals, I never put a EMD down. And so, yeah, and even this flip that I'm buying, I'm not putting an EMD. Usually if it's off market, and my market is different. I'm in a smaller market to, compared to these larger markets and things of that nature. If you're wholesaling in California, I don't know. I think every wholesaler is putting a deposit down, right? I'm in Tennessee, in certain areas, and maybe in Nashville, yes, you would need to put one, but other cities, probably not a big deal. But let me know if you all have any questions on EMDs, earnest money deposits, and just comment those down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all later.